Okay, so gonna give my review for the game so far. I haven't exactly done the VR stuff, so I don't know yet. I don't, I'm giving my review on the main campaign. Um, One thing I like is that there's no gimmicks or like forced decisions that suddenly appear, like kind of like how there was in Ace Combat 5, where you would have those responses and stuff, or nothing. Now, I think overall this is a good game, but I am a little underwhelmed in some areas. One being that most of the difficulty in this game is artificial. I mean, I like the fact, well, it's not most of it, but some of it. I mean, I do like the fact that you now have to pay attention to briefings, which is something I rarely ever did in any other Ace Combat game. I just picked a plan I always went with and like, okay, I'm just gonna use this, bomb some shit. But now you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention what you're gonna use, and and you have to pick the best plan that you have to, like, that would be best suited for that mission. Otherwise, if you don't, it's not gonna work out well. But in terms of difficulty, it's like for example, the ships. Like, the ships didn't take that many missiles to take down in the previous games. Like, maybe one or two, but I remember, like, there were some that were taking, like, 3 to 5. So it felt like, I don't know if they found, like, a tougher metal or something to use for their ships. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's what I mean by when I feel like the game is artificially difficult in some areas, and especially in this last mission where you had to go down the tunnel and take out that last drone. I was given 30 seconds to do it. Given 30 seconds to take it down, plus some other stuff. And that, to me, would not have been difficult if either the time limit was increased or if I didn't have a time limit at all. But that's what I mean by that it feels artificially difficult. Even though the task itself is not difficult to do, it feels difficult because you have a set time to do it. If you don't, you fail the mission. But the problem is with this game is that I don't understand its story. Okay, Ace Combat 5, the unsung war, remains the Ace Combat game to me that has the best story. Okay, gonna have to skip this because the music is being interrupting. Like, I didn't understand anything in its story. Like, what happened with President Harley? What happened to a lot of things? Why did that guy who looks like Ignis decided he wants to cause a war between Osea and Yuktobani, what is it called? Wow. I'm trying to think of the name. Erugia, yeah. He wanted to cause a war between Osea and Erugia, and from what I understand, that he was Belkin. And Belkins are like, they're kind of like the Germans of the world of Ace Combat, like, or kind of like a German-Polish sort of culture. But I, for one, didn't know how he caused the war. It never states that. All I know is that he was using that old man, Mikhail or something like that, to basically gather test data and use it to create the perfect drone and stuff. That's all I understood. And I understand that he did it for the sole purpose of causing war between Osea and Belka. But, I mean, Osea and Erugia. But other than the fact that the space elevator was paid for by Erugia, it was built on Erusian territory, wasn't it? It was, right? Plus, I don't understand how that was the cause of the war in general. It's just a fucking tower. Plus, what is the point of it anyway? From what I understand, it's like meant to like launch aircraft into space, I guess, which there are better economical ways of doing that. Case in point, planet Earth. I mean, we have space elevators here too, but they're not that tall. They're not even the quarter of that size. I did like the cameo from Kei Nagase at the end, who, in case you didn't know, she was a major character in the... She's a major character in the Ace Combat series. She was your partner, one of your partners in Ace Combat 2, and a main character in Ace Combat 5. You know, I was kind of taken a little bit surprised by that. You're like, hey, it's Kei Nagase. You know, she was also in 4, but only in like a cameo appearance, like in this one as well. But in both 2 and 5, she was actually your partner. She was your fire pilot, the one that you fought alongside. If you chose to fight alongside her in 2, that is, because she was like one of the optional allies that you could take with you. Um, but other than that, this game kind of reminds me a lot of Ace Combat 4. And it's the sense that, well, one, there's a lot of reused locations in Ace Combat 4 from this. There is a lot. There's Stonehenge, there's Farbanti. I guess that's actually just 2 locations. Now that I think about it, just 2 locations. There might have been more, but I was taken surprised by the Stonehenge one because in 4 you were like destroying it, and now in 7 you're defending it. And we had the siege on Farbanti again in this game, which happened in 4. But yeah, the reason I say this game reminds me a lot of 4, and 4 was I won't say it was my first Ace Combat game. That would be 1. But it was the game that actually got me into the series. I had Ace Combat 1, or as it's known in the States as Air Combat. I had it for a while, I just never really played it, and I actually didn't know it was part of the same series because it's the first word in its name was different. Here in the States it's known as Air Combat, and elsewhere it's known as Ace Combat. It became Ace Combat. And, you know, the story feels kind of like an afterthought, just like in 4 was. And the thing is, I don't know what is it with like the Ace Combat series in general, but especially with 4, 7, and even 0, you're kind of like treated like this messiah of a fighter pilot. Like you're the ultimate, that everybody always relies on you to get the job done. I'm just a guy in a plane, okay? I may be the most skillful. I may have been the one who took down Mr. X, okay? But that doesn't mean you guys couldn't have done it as well. It's all a matter of skill. And I don't mind being treated like this absolute hero in Ace Combat series, because the thing is, in Ace Combat 5, you were like in the I think either the second or third in command of your unit, and when you lost your captain, you had to basically assume command, and it wasn't just you. It was you and your allies, you and Nagase and the rookie pilot, I forget his name, and the guy who crashed into the stadium, I forget his name. It wasn't just about you, it was about you and your friends. You were known as the demons of Rosgrees, essentially. Or the ghosts of Rosgrees. And the reason the story in 5 was much better is because it was more involved. Things made sense. There was a war between was it Osea, or was it also in also Osea in Erusia, or was it two different other nations? I forget. I'm sorry, I forget. But the war was also caused by Belka, except that you found this out in a rather shocking way. You find out that Belka, after the end of the Belkan War, which was Ace Combat 0, they manufactured this war to basically have both oppositions wipe each other out so that they can come in and reestablish their nation. And the thing is, I don't like the fact that, like I said, I don't know much about the Belkans, other than that they detonated 7 nuclear bombs on their own soil to prevent it from being taken and stuff, and such like that. But it's kind of like in the case of Call of Duty, where the Russians and sometimes the Arabs themselves are always portrayed as the bad guys. And and the thing is, the story here doesn't make a lot of sense. Things just happen and there's no context into it whatsoever. For example, the 3rd or 4th mission in the game where you're going to rescue this guy from the space elevator, Harling. You're taking out these enemies, these drones or whatever, and you're trying to give way to this guy who's technically rescuing President Harling. Then suddenly, President Harling turns back, heads towards the tower, and suddenly you're framed for his murder because a missile that you were supposedly firing at a drone missed, and it hit his helicopter. Which is kind of funny because when I was playing the game, I was I mean, I wasn't the closest there was to Mother Goose One, which is the helicopter that President Harling was in, but I was firing at the one that was behind him, and I wasn't firing it from like directly behind him. I was like firing at him from the sides. You can see this in my playthrough. So how could someone in real life even think that it was my missile that brought them down was just weird. It's just weird. And I always get that in the protagonist of the Ace Combat series, aside from Assault Horizon, the character, the protagonist you're playing at, is just a standing character for you, the player. But the thing is that this matter is not brought up again. And the thing is, later on down the line on the Siege of Arbonte mission, where you're doing a similar mission, where, I mean, basically actually the Siege of the Arbonte mission was actually pretty cool, because you basically had to fly around and tag who was enemy and who was ally. And the reason that this was so cool is because of the destruction of the satellites, which kind of in a way caused a chain reaction that destroyed all the other satellites in the world, which I have no idea how that would happen. I guess it could be from the debris and stuff, but the likelihood of that happening is like weird. And I don't think that and the thing is that you had Oseans and Erusians who were both not just fighting each other but even fighting their own. And so you had to go around and clear the confusion, but you also had to keep an eye on this van that was carrying this important VIP. But then the same thing happens in that mission, where after you carry the VIP, a plane out of nowhere that's supposedly supposed to be yours, because they said it had 3 strikes, like the one that I was flying, shoots it down. I was expecting it to be framed again. But again, it's never brought up. It's never brought up. There was also the fact that there was the plane that the princess and the old man's granddaughters were on was shot down when after I had saved it. And apparently they it didn't I didn't hear nothing about this. We heard about the other guy getting his helicopter shot down, but not the princess and her retinue. And the thing is, they all survived. They all survived, and some of them ended up in the space elevator, some of them didn't. It's like, what the hell happened? That's kind of what I was asking myself 90% of the time when I was trying to grasp this game's story, is what the hell's going on? I don't understand. There's no context. There's no coherence. Like, who was the person that jumped out of the space elevator and got blown up by a missile, and you saw like the freaking helmet with like parts of their head still attached falling down? I thought that was the princess. I thought she got blown up, because that's all I heard, is that she was supposed to be the one putting on the suit and jumping out. What was the point of that? And then you find out she's still alive. Like, damn, girl, you made out of titanium or something? I don't know. I waited like 3-4 years for this game to come out, and I mean, like I said, it gives me strong Ace Combat 4 vibes, but I was just a little disappointed. There are missions that are just artificially difficult, and scores at times are a little, sometimes not too low enough to give you a sense of freedom just to go shoot down whatever you want. It was freaking weird. I've never failed in any other Ace Combat game other than this one so damn much. And I say this not because the game is hard, it's because, well, I guess that is part of the reason. Part of the reason is that you actually have to pay attention to the briefings, you have to pay attention to what AOX is saying, which is something you never really did in any of the other Ace Combat games, aside from maybe 4. But even then, most of that stuff was just rare. You just went and shot down whatever the hell you want. There was nothing. You know, I guess if you lost one unit, it was a game over or something, but And the weird thing is, why are these guys on the ground that who are supposed to be defending like Stonehenge and stuff? How come they can't put up? How come 5 of them can't put up a fight against 2 tanks? That's the thing. Your allies don't do much in this game. Not just the ones in the air, but even the ones on the ground. Their weapons deal very little damage. Like I remember I was flying and there was this ally of mine who shot a missile, a Fox 2, which is the same one I usually shoot when I shoot at that enemy, that should have killed it in one hit and it didn't. I had to shoot it. Because that's the thing in Ace Combat 6. In Ace Combat 6, your allies felt like they were allies because it wasn't just you doing the damage, it was them too. And even in the other previous Ace Combat games too, it was the same thing. They weren't just flying around expecting you to do a few things. And the thing is, I heard people were praising this game. They were calling it the best Ace Combat game in years. I'm thinking, one, this doesn't come close to having the same gameplay quality that 6 had, even though 6 really had even though 6 was short and kind of had a really non-inspired story. But it doesn't even have the story that 5 had. 5 has to have the best story in the entire franchise because things actually happened. Things actually mattered. You had diverging paths. Some say 3 does. The Japanese version of 3 does too, but I don't know. I haven't played it. I have the North American one. That's the one without all the cutscenes and story and dialogue. I've yet to get my hands on the actual PlayStation, on the actual Japanese one. Maybe I'll find an ISO somewhere online and download and play it on my PlayStation Portable. But still, this is one I was not expecting. I mean, the gameplay doesn't. And the thing is, the reason I keep talking about the gameplay is because the gameplay in Ace Combat 6, you were thrown into these wild skirmishes. There wasn't just 5 planes or 10 planes shooting at each other. There were hundreds. Hundreds. And that's a game that's an Xbox 360 exclusive. Xbox 360 game. That's a game that came out 10, 13 years ago. You mean to tell me 13 years later you couldn't do that here? I did like the clouds. I did like the ice formation and the turbulence and stuff. All that was neat. All that was spot on, but I don't know. I was let down. I was expecting a great story. I was expecting at least quality of Ace Combat 6, or if not a little better. But like I said, there's so much inconsistency going on. People are doing things for no fucking reason. You don't know what the hell is going on. I mean, at least you know something about the characters. That's a plus. But this kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy 15, where that same amount of storytelling is just as bad here. Now, I haven't finished the game entirely. There's still the VR missions I'm gonna do here in a bit. I'm gonna try the first one, actually try to get a feel for what the VR is gonna be like and such. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be cool. But as it stands, jeez, this game gets like a 6 out of 10 for me. 3 points for, I guess a lot of Ace Combat 4 vibes. I guess that's subjective, but and the thing is, I try not to let my subjective views get in the way of how I feel about a game or how a game should be like viewed and stuff. But like I said, this game reminds me a lot of Ace Combat 4, where everybody is just stroking your wad, and because you're the best pilot around. Where in Ace Combat 5, it wasn't just you, it was Nagase, it was the other 2 guys who were with you as well, and Captain Johnson. And that's the thing. The guy that was on the pilot with the one that was on the chopper with what's his name? Harling. That was Captain Johnson. That was the same Captain Johnson you flew alongside with in Ace Combat 5, who later joined your unit after you lost one of your team members. I'm sorry if I kind of went on a rant here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll enjoy this game. I'll redo some of the missions and stuff like that. Oh, that's another thing. People talk way too damn much in this game. They talk way too damn much. I mean, I got interrupted God knows how many times playing this. I don't know, that can be kind of said for other Ace Combat games too. Like, I think 5 was like I think the one that was the most quiet to me was 0. No. It was the first two. First two plus 3 were... 1, 2, and 3 did not really have much audio and dialogue. At all. If any. The Japanese version of 3 did, because 3 actually had a story. The Japanese version of Ace Combat 3 had a story, while the North American version was like kind of like a bootlegged story. Like, it told you what was happening and stuff, but it didn't tell you, like, it didn't give you the multiple choice paths that Ace Combat 5 provided you and stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's a good thing I rent games now. It's a good thing I was able to rent this and play, because I'm not sure if I'm going to get it in the future. I mean, graphically, it's the best looking Ace Combat game there is, and it adds like a lot of new things, like the clouds and turbulence and such. I was expecting Mihail to be Yellow 13 from Ace Combat 4, at least. That's what I was hoping for, because he reminded me a lot of Yellow 13, but no, it just feels like he's just a standing character. He's just a random guy, a random ace pilot. Maybe if he was like one of the pilots I played as in the previous games, that would have been cool too. But that wasn't a thing either. Yeah, like, imagine they did that. Imagine they make an Ace Combat game where your rival Ace was somebody you played as in one of the previous games. That'd be cool. Another thing, though, it's just a suggestion. I don't know if Namco could do this, but I would like to see a spin-off series of the Ace Combat games. Basically, it would be like Battlefield and Call of Duty, but set in the world of Ace Combat, set in the world of Strange Reel. I think that would be cool. So, like, you could be like doing missions during, like, you'd be like doing missions during the important parts of the war from the other previous games, and you'd look up and you see the pilots you were playing as and stuff. I think it's a cool idea, but I'm not sure how they're going to do it. Because I think the universe of Strange Reel is really interesting. It really is. But again, this doesn't really add much to it, because a lot of things just happen out of context and they don't really make sense. They don't seem to have a connection and stuff. Nothing. Like, this is Final Fantasy 15 levels of bad, but at least this game was complete. Unless the Season Pass actually is supposed to include stuff that is supposed to be mandatory to the story, which, in this case, nope. But if it's going to, then yeah. It'll be Final Fantasy 15 levels of bad. But like I said, at least the game is difficult, at least it's challenging, at least it makes you think, especially when I went up against the Arsenal Bird during the second fight against the Arsenal Bird. You guys are going to see me... I don't know if you guys have watched that one yet, but you're going to see me rage a lot in that one, because I did not know what the hell to do. I was constantly getting bombarded by missiles. I was constantly dying. I was just pissed. I was pissed. I was like, whoever designed this mission should just go die in a hole. But then once you figure it out, it's like, oh, okay, that's what I was supposed to do. And plus, that right there is an example of good challenge. When you're faced with a task that's actually... you're actually able to beat without restrictions, but it's still challenging, it's still hard. Whereas in the case of the final section of this game, of the main campaign, where you're just flying in that tunnel, which kind of gave me some strong Ace Combat 3 vibes, except it wasn't as good as Ace Combat 3, because 1, Ace Combat 3 didn't have a fucking time limit. 2, you were fought in the final battle in Ace Combat 3, or at least the semi-final boss, took place in an underground city. An underground city that didn't have a sky. So there's that. But yeah, 6 out of 10. That's all I'm giving this game. Wait, now I can change the skins? So what are you telling me that I unlocked all these skins for if I couldn't change them in the first place? Wow. Wait. Am I not done?